Have you ever wondered if the greatest figures in history could come back to life and look you in the eye? What would their gaze say? No longer frozen in stone or trapped in paintings today, thanks to artificial intelligence, we are bringing 20 legendary icons back to life. Figures who helped shape the world as we know it. From Alexander the Great and the blind poet Homer, to a warrior queen who defied Rome with only one eye. Each face restored by AI is more than just an image. It's a message from the past to the present. So, who do you want to see brought back next? Leave a comment. 1. Alexander the Great. This is the face, now reconstructed by AI, that once made the world bow down. Born in Pella, Macedonia, in an age that showed no mercy to the ordinary, Alexander didn't just inherit a throne. He ripped apart the old world map and built an empire that no one thought possible. In his early 20s, he crossed deserts, conquered Egypt, crushed Persia, and marched all the way to India. But behind the glory of victory was a man haunted by the idea of immortality, not of the body, but of the name. He died young, only 32, but his death didn't end his story. It carved it deeper into time. Now, thousands of years later, his face returns, not in marble, but through machine intelligence. Every scar, every stare, reborn as a reminder. Power may fade, but legends do not. 2. Alfred Nobel. Those eyes once witnessed the destruction caused by the very thing he invented. Born in Sweden, Alfred Nobel was a chemist, engineer, and entrepreneur. The man behind dynamite. His invention brought him immense wealth, but also a haunting question. Was he building the world or helping destroy it? When a newspaper mistakenly published his obituary and labeled him the Merchant of Death, it shook him to the core. In a bold move, he chose to leave behind a different legacy. He dedicated most of his fortune to creating prizes that honor science, literature, and peace. He couldn't erase explosives from history, but he gave the world something greater, a legacy of redemption. Today, AI brings back the face of Alfred Nobel, the man who once held both destruction and salvation in his hands. And it reminds us that sometimes redemption is the most powerful invention of all. 3. Donatello. It wasn't stone he touched with his hands, it was the soul. Donatello wasn't just a sculptor of the Renaissance, he was the first to make stone speak. With his bronze statue of David, he created the first freestanding nude since antiquity, forcing all of Europe to see the human body not as a symbol of sin, but as a masterpiece. He didn't glorify gods or warriors. He carved raw human emotion, fear, pride, and vulnerability. He didn't live in palaces. He wandered through workshops, lived in the shadows, but left behind creations that still move hearts centuries later. Now, the very face that shaped our vision of beauty has been revived by AI. Eyes that once saw the soul beneath every flaw, now looking back at us. Once again, Donatello breathes life into history, only this time through his own. 4. Liviadusilla. She never held a sword, yet she ruled the Roman Empire with deadly silence. As the wife of Augustus, Rome's first emperor, Livia was far more than a queen. She was the quiet architect behind an empire. In a palace filled with schemes, she survived through multiple reigns and held the empire together for nearly half a century. People called her the mother of the empire, but they also whispered rumors of mysterious deaths, hidden plots, and silent power. Livia never needed a crown. She had intelligence, resolve, and a chilling calm. Today, AI restores her face, not as a royal portrait, but as a symbol of control, strategy, and quiet strength. A reminder that history isn't just written by the victors, but by those who stood behind them. 5. Homer. Though blind, he helped humanity see war, love, and fate. No one knows for sure if Homer was real, but the Iliad and the Odyssey are. They stand as the pillars of Western literature, Epics passed down by voice, shaping heroes, rebuilding Troy, and leaving behind questions still unanswered. Homer was a poet, a storyteller, a living memory of ancient Greece. People say he was blind. But maybe that's why he saw what others couldn't. The tragedy of ambition, the cost of victory, the fragility of being human. And now, through AI, his face returns, not for us to look at, but to listen to once more. That blind voice still whispers in the minds of mankind. 6. Mary Wollstonecraft. This reconstructed face once terrified society, simply because it dared to think differently. In 18th century England, where women were expected to stay silent, Mary spoke out, not with guns or banners, but with words. Her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, was a direct challenge to the world. Women deserved to learn, to speak, and to live as equals. She wasn't welcomed. They called her mad, ridiculous, dangerous. But Mary never backed down. Alone, ridiculed, and ignored, she kept writing, because she knew her words weren't for her time, but for the centuries to come. Today, AI brings back her face. Resolute, brilliant, unyielding. A face once rejected by the world. Now a symbol of courage and intellect. Because no one remembers the ones who stayed silent, but we all remember the woman who dared to speak first. 7. Ibn Khaldun. This face, now reborn, once mapped the rise and fall of civilizations, before anyone knew it was happening. Born in North Africa in the 14th century, Ibn Khaldun wasn't just a historian. He understood why history repeats. In his masterpiece, Muqaddimah, he revealed the cycle of empires. They begin with ambition, grow through conquest, thrive, decay, and collapse. He had no army, no throne. Yet his ideas still echo in modern academia. He was centuries ahead of his time, the father of sociology and historical thought. Today, AI revives his face, calm, wise, and distant, as if he's still watching the next cycle unfold. In an era overwhelmed by noise and misinformation, maybe what we need most is him. 8. Metacomt, King Phillip. This restored portrait isn't just the face of a king. It's the face of a tragedy that never truly ended. Metacomt, also known as King Phillip, was not born to fight. But when foreign settlers began seizing the land, forests, and spirit of his ancestors, he rose. King Philip's War became one of the bloodiest conflicts in North American history. He wasn't fighting for conquest, but for the survival of a culture. Though he lost, he was never forgotten. In Wampanoag legend, he remains the final voice, the first cry, that warned of the centuries of suffering to come. Today, AI brings Metacomt's face back to life, not to tell a story of victory, but to remind us, some histories aren't written in books. They live in what was erased. 9. Giovani De Medici. The face restored today belongs to a man who never held a paintbrush, but sparked an artistic explosion. 14th century Florence wasn't a place for the penniless. Yet Giovanni transformed a small bank into the financial backbone of Europe and laid the foundation for the powerful Medici dynasty. He didn't just earn wealth, he used it to buy an era. He funded artists, built hospitals, supported the public. Under his vision, money turned into legacy. Thanks to him, the Renaissance didn't just rise, it endured. AI now brings back his face, calm, intelligent, unroyal, but behind those eyes lies a vision. A world where money doesn't just buy power, it funds beauty. He never signed a single painting, but nearly all of them carry his mark. 10. Empress Theodora. The face restored today was once seen as unworthy of a crown, until it saved an empire from collapse. Born into poverty, raised among theater and scandal, Theodora had no noble blood, only sharp intellect and iron will. She reached the Byzantine throne not through heritage, but through resistance, against society, against expectations and against fate. When riots erupted, everyone wanted to flee. Only one person stood and said, "Royalty is the finest shroud." That line saved the throne, saved Justinian, and kept the empire from falling. Today, AI brings back Theodora's face, stern eyes, unshaken mouth. And we're reminded, true power doesn't come from blood, but from an unbreakable will. 11. Li Bai. This is the face, now reconstructed by AI, that once gazed at the moon and gave the world verses that still echo 1,000 years later. Li Bai didn't live to serve the court. He lived to dream, to drink, and to turn language into a universe. His poems weren't written in ink. They were written in wine, mountains, and solitude. He wandered through China like a drifting cloud, unbound by rules or rank. The Tang court once invited him in, but he left. Fame couldn't hold a soul born to fly. He was a poet, not of one dynasty, but of anyone who's ever looked at the moon and felt hollow. Now, AI has brought his face back. Disheveled hair, distant eyes, as if still searching for his next line in the mist. Once again, Li Bai drifts through time, this time carried by data and code. 12. Minamoto no Yoritomo. In the eyes restored by AI, we see the birth of a new era, where swords ruled instead of scrolls. For centuries, Japan was led by aristocrats. Then everything changed, and Yoritomo led the way. After defeating the Taira clan in the bloody Genpei War, he became Japan's first shogun, laying the foundation for a samurai era that would last for generations. But power didn't come easily. Yoritomo had been exiled, defeated, and branded a threat. He survived through strategy, patience, and the ruthless resolve needed to shape a new age. Today, AI revives his face, stern, cold, in full control. Like a katana, still sheathed but ready. And when we look into his eyes, we don't just see Japanese history. We see the beginning of an age forged in honor and blood. 13. Queen Sion Deok. This restored face once looked to the stars, to find a way to lead an entire kingdom. In a time when women were pushed out of politics, Sion Deok, Princess of Silla, became Korea's first reigning queen. She ruled not with force but with wisdom. She loved science, championed the arts, and believed in the power of astronomy. She built Gyeongseongdae Observatory, which still stands today, as a symbol of how she led. Seeing far, understanding deeply, and guiding wisely. Sion Deok didn't just defend Silla. She unified it, nurtured its growth, and left behind a legacy of intellect that lasted centuries. Today, AI brings her face back, calm, steady, as if she's still reading both the skies and the hearts of her people, a woman with the soul of a scholar and the will of a founder. 14. Lady Murasaki. This is the face, now reconstructed by AI, that once hid behind palace curtains, yet created something the world had never seen: the novel. Her real name is unknown, but history remembers her as the author of The Tale of Genji, the world's first long-form novel, not written to record events, but to explore the human heart. Lady Murasaki lived in the Heian court, a place ruled by rituals and silence. In her solitude behind the screen, she observed everything: the glance of a nobleman, the bow of an empress, the loneliness behind the power. And she wrote like no one before her. With an anonymous hand, she crafted characters so vivid, later generations weren't sure if it was fiction or memory. Now, AI revives her face, delicate, distant, and filled with things never spoken. Perhaps that face itself was the unwritten first chapter. 15. Kubla Khan. When AI brings this face back, we don't just see the grandson of Genghis Khan, we see the man who turned Mongol conquest into an empire. Kublai was unlike the Khans before him. He didn't rule by sword alone, but with law, learning, and vision. He built a court, reformed governance, embraced Chinese scholars, and infused culture into the heart of his rule. Under him, the Yuan dynasty was born, the first time non-Han rulers governed all of China. A time both powerful and fragile, structured and strange. AI now restores his face, one of contradictions, a warrior with a scholar's gaze, an emperor with a wanderer's soul. In his eyes, we see a blend of step and throne room, of horseback and library. 16. Queen Amanirenas. This face, now brought back to life, once led armies against Rome, even with only one eye left to see. As queen of the Kushite kingdom, Amanirenas wasn't a symbol. She was a living spear in the desert. When the Roman Empire pushed into Nubia, she didn't retreat. Even after injury, she rode into battle, led her people, and struck Roman outposts so fiercely that they were forced to negotiate peace. No epic tells her tale. No golden relic bears her name. But history remembers clearly. This woman made Rome sit down and listen. Today, AI restores her face. Strong jaw, fearless stare, a true warrior queen, without a crown, but never without a cause. 17. Uklid. This is the face, now recreated by AI, that once saw perfect lines before the world even knew what they were. Little is known about Uklid's life. He wasn't a warrior, nor a king, but he redrew the blueprint of thought. In Elements, he arranged all known geometric knowledge into a logical system, one that over 2,000 years later we still teach, study, and use. No noise, no power, just pure structure. His thinking shaped everything, from architecture to philosophy, from engineering to artificial intelligence. AI now brings back Uklid's face, quiet, focused, and free of expression. Because true masters don't live on through portraits. They live in the shapes they left behind. 18. Confucius. This restored face once inspired not just a nation, but a way of life that's lasted over 2,000 years. Born in a time of chaos, Confucius didn't build an empire with weapons. He built it with words. He traveled from state to state, not seeking office or power, but sharing a vision of morality, compassion, respect, loyalty, wisdom, and integrity. A path through disorder where people learn to become human again. He was rejected, laughed at, dismissed by those in power, but he never stopped. Because Confucius didn't live to be honored. He lived to plant ideas that would take root across generations. Today, AI brings back his face, gentle, thoughtful, and quietly profound, as if still asking us the same question. Have you learned how to be human yet? 19. Atawalpa. This is the face, restored by AI, that once stood as the final image of a glorious civilization before it was crushed under European conquest. Atawalpa became emperor of the Inca Empire after a brutal civil war with his brother. But before his rule could settle, a greater disaster arrived, the Spanish. He was captured by Francisco Pizarro in a cunning ambush. Though he offered mountains of gold and silver for his release, he was executed anyway. His death wasn't just the fall of a man, it was the final toll for an entire empire. Now, AI revives his face, young, noble, and seemingly still asking why he was betrayed. Maybe that look still wonders, why wasn't our civilization allowed to survive? 20. Queen Aoteep I. This face brought back to life, once hid behind a veil, but carried the will that forced enemies to retreat. Aoteep doesn't appear in grand statues. No pyramid bears her name, but in the shadowed years of Egypt's struggle against Hyksos rule, she kept the royal flame alive. When her husband died in battle and her son was too young to lead, Aoteep took command. She organized resistance, defended the borders, and raised the future king. Her strength didn't need praise, it lived in the victories she quietly delivered. Today, AI restores her face, calm, wise, and unburdened by glory. Because some heroines don't need to be remembered to shape the course of history. The faces you've just seen aren't just symbols. They are witnesses to their time. They weren't perfect, they failed, they fought, they fell. And that's exactly what made them immortal. Through technology, history is no longer distant. It becomes something we can see, feel, and reflect on. Who should we bring back next? Leave a comment. And if this journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe so we can keep bringing history back to life, one face at a time.